Vinland Saga Season 2 just wrapped up last Monday, and today I'd like to go over what made it one of my favorite anime seasons that I've ever seen. Vinland Saga Season 2 starts off 2 years after the events of Season 1. Season 1 ended with Askeladd killing Canut's father and with Canute killing Askeladd. Season 2 is so unbelievably different from Season 1, and because of that, I want to give you guys a brief synopsis of the big plot points of the season before we dive into my thoughts on the characters and Thorfinn's evolution. Off the bat, we're introduced to a character named Einar, who within the first episode is enslaved and brought to Ketil's farm. Ketil is a man who we'll speak about a bit more later, but he owns a massive farm and tells Einar that if he pays him back through farming, then he can buy his freedom. From here, we see that Thorfinn was taken and sold into slavery by Canute and is on Ketil's farm as well. Throughout the first couple of episodes, we quickly see that Einar and Thorfinn develop a close friendship as they do hours of back-breaking work trying to clear out woods to build an area for them to be able to farm on. Throughout these first couple of episodes, we're introduced to some more of the characters that are on the farm in Snake and his crew of guards, along with the other farmhands that seem determined to throw Thorfinn and Einar off the track of getting their farm going. We also meet a female slave that Ketil has taken a liking to named Arnheid, along with Ketil's father, whose name's Sverkel. All of these characters offer interesting glimpses into the ways that people treat and act around slaves, but the action in this season is certainly much slower paced. In fact, we don't really see anything in terms of action until Ketil and his sons leave to go meet with Canute, who's recently become king since his older brother's death. Once Ketil leaves, we're introduced to Arnheid's husband, a man named Garder. Garder was a slave at a neighboring farm and killed his master's family and has now come to free Arnheid. During the same time, Ketil's son, who's named Olmar, embarrasses himself in front of Canute's men and ends up getting into a fight with them and killing them. This causes Ketil to flee, where he meets Leif Erikson, who is still out looking for Thorfinn. Leif gives passage back to his farm, where he finds that Arnheid had tried to help Garder in the fight against Snake and his men, and Ketil beats her so badly that she dies from her injuries. We see that Canute hasn't taken kindly to Omar killing his men, and he attacks Ketil's farm. A lot happens during this time, but the fighting eventually stops as Ketil's men retreat, and we see Thorfinn goes to try to talk with Canute to stop the fighting. We see that Thorfinn stops the fighting by talking with Canute, and Canute seems to have had a change of heart about being such an ironclad ruler. At this point, we see Thorfinn and Einar return to Iceland, with Leif back to Thorfinn's childhood home, and the season ends with an amazing reunitement of Thorfinn and his family. Now that I've got the major plot points out of the way, it's time to talk about our favorite short blonde-haired Viking. The Thorfinn that we see in this season is so unbelievably different than the Thorfinn that we saw in season 1. He's not a warmonger anymore, and while some people may say that he's been defeated by slavery and the death of Askeladd, I choose to see it more that he's evolving and growing as a person. Throughout the season, he reflects on what he did and why he did everything he did in season 1, and we see that he's plagued by guilt to the point of having night terrors nearly every night about Askeladd and all the people that they killed together. While we only see Thorfinn fight once in this season, and reluctantly at that, it's clear that he hasn't lost any of the speed that he had during season 1. I know that a lot of people don't really like what Thorfinn's character does and is doing during this season, but I think that it's because he's trying to become a true warrior like Askeladd and Thor's told him to do in season 1. Thorfinn isn't a simple man anymore. He's much more complex, and he wishes to leave the world better than when he came into it. I think that's a big message that we can take away from his character this season. He's a beacon of hope in a world that's ruled by people with strength and brute force, and he doesn't want the world to be that way anymore. I personally think that Thorfinn's development during this season was absolutely amazing, and to see him echoing the words of his father in that he has no enemies was just absolutely amazing, and does paint a stark contrast to what he was like during season 1. Moving on from Thorfinn, I absolutely have to talk about the loaded side cast of characters that we got to meet this season. Einar and Arnheid are certainly two of the big ones, and because of that, I'd like to start with them. Einar is a man that doesn't give up no matter what you tell him, and he's a perfect character to pair with Thorfinn. While Einar gets heated about many things throughout the course of the season, Thorfinn often acknowledges that they aren't in a position where they can change any of it. Einar really helps to sort of set that will to live ablaze again within Thorfinn. Thorfinn knows that things aren't right, but at the beginning of the season, we see that he's content with allowing them to continue that way. But by spending time with Einar, we see that Thorfinn regains his will to change the world once again. Einar is a bit like Thorfinn at the beginning of the season, and her moment to shine really comes when her husband Garder comes to free her from captivity. Up to that point, she'd really given up on living, but seeing her husband and Thorfinn and Einar give it their all to help free her really helped to reinstill a longing to live her life again. Another character that I'd really like to focus on is Snake. He's the leader of a group of defenders that defend Ketil's farm, and we essentially learn that he's a disgrace where he comes from, and we only learn his real name in the second to last episode of the season. He's the same person that Thorfinn is. He's running from the things that he did in the past, and through some amazing moments with Sverkel, we see that he's trying to better himself. He's an absolutely amazing character that deserves more praise, and I really like what they did with him in this season. Sverkel is another character that I'd like to briefly talk about. He helps Thorfinn and Einar quite a bit while enlisting the help of Snake to help him learn the Bible, as he doesn't know how to read. Sverkel is definitely a very kind character. He's exceptionally different than Ketil, in that Ketil can be really brutal at times, but Sverkel is never that way, and he oftentimes actually helps Thorfinn and Einar out when they're doing things that they're not supposed to, like trying to help free Arnheid so that she can go be with Garder. He's a really good character, and I really liked getting to see that side of somebody that is in a position of power but chooses to be kind. Now, my overall thoughts on the season. I absolutely loved this season. If you guys can't tell, I was very, very happy with what they did with it. I know that a lot of people really weren't thrilled with the lack of action and lack of fighting, and I certainly can understand that. Although we did get some really, really good action sequences, especially in the latter, I want to say 8 episodes of the season. I think that choosing to focus on Thorfinn and the changes that he is trying to make to himself and changes that he is just trying to make in the world is a really interesting choice, and I really like that that's what they did. I'm very happy that they decided to take it that direction, as Thorfinn is really a changed man, and through meeting a lot of these side characters, we see that he is much different in season 2, but in a good way. He's not out for revenge anymore. He understands that what he did was wrong when he was younger, and I think that's something that's really important to note about this season. This wasn't supposed to be a whole bunch of fighting, and while I'm pretty sure we're getting more fighting in season 3, which I'm very excited about, I still think the focus is on that Thorfinn wants to be more of a pacifist. He is not someone that always wants to be fighting. He doesn't see that he can change the world through fighting. He already tried that and it went poorly with Askeladd. I do really think that if you have not seen this season, you should absolutely go check it out. It has some amazing themes and messages. Along with that, I really want to talk about the soundtrack of this show is phenomenal. They hit it on the head. I was worried that they wouldn't be able to make it as good as season 1, as season 1 had a lot of fantastic buildups. You know, the music is just amazing in season 1, and I was worried that with the lack of action, they wouldn't be able to do that in season 2, but they absolutely nailed it. Along with that, the art direction and the animation is as beautiful as ever. There are some just amazing shots in this show. The animators got to flex their muscles a little bit, certainly, and I'm very happy that they did, as it really helped to tie the world together, and it made it feel like I was watching this amazing metamorphosis of Thorfinn through these different art styles and through these changes that they decided to make and stuff like that. So overall, I think it's definitely one of my favorite seasons of anime that I've ever watched. Again, being as it's more for a shonen demographic, although I believe it's a seinen, I'm pretty sure that people, again, were a little bit more put off by the lack of action in this season, but that's not really what this is about. It's similar to that of Vagabond, where you have someone who's constantly fighting and who's been fighting their whole life, and they decide to make a change. We had farmland arcs in both of these manga, and we got to see a farmland arc animated in this season, and I think that that is something that's really important, as it shows a dimension outside of just being a killing machine for Thorfinn. We know that he's capable, but it's more that he doesn't want to now. He's in control of his life, he's in control of his emotions more, and I think that that's something that the producers did a really good job of showing this season. So there you guys have it. There is my Vinland Saga season 2 video. Very, very happy with this season. I really liked it. Let me know what you guys thought of it down in the comments below. I'm sure some of you guys are going to disagree with me, because I know that a lot of people were really split on this, but there you have it. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please drop a like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I love you all. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.